As you can see, hyperpicking is a rather advanced technique. So for those of you that are beginner or intermediate players, you're going to need a full understanding of speed picking before you attempt the hyperpicking technique. And many of the exercises I'll show you can be used to develop speed picking. Now the first thing we need to do is to define hyperpicking. What is it and how is it different from speed picking? Well, there are basically three different levels of picking speeds: regular picking, speed picking, and hyperpicking. Let's look at an example of regular picking. The second level is speed picking. Speed picking is different than regular picking in that the motion of the wrist is minimized, and it's more of a vibration of the forearm. The third level is hyperpicking. Hyperpicking is different than speed picking in that the vibration required of the arm is much more violent. At first you might find it difficult to tell the difference between speed picking and hyperpicking. So what I'm going to do in the next example is to play speed picking against hyperpicking. Did you see the difference between speed picking and hyperpicking? This technique allows you to play at incredible speeds, somewhere around 24 notes a second. But speed is not without some cost. Hyperpicking puts tremendous strain on your elbow and lower back. So what we want to do is reduce the risk of injury. The two best ways to do this are: one, keep practice sessions short, somewhere around 10 to 15 minutes, take a break, come back for another 10 or 15. The second thing that you must do regards body position. More than likely, you don't sit with the guitar in the classical position. You probably sit with it like this. And the problem with sitting like this is that you generate undue strain on your back. So what we want to do is place the guitar between the legs in the classical position, find something to raise your left foot on, and this not only helps prevent back injuries, but it helps you get better leverage for the hyperpicking technique. The first step to developing the hyperpicking technique is to get a feel for the vibration that's required of your arm. So what we're going to do is go to the 3rd string, 14th fret, the note A, and although we're not going to play it just yet, we're going to position our right hand on the strings, and you're going to want to get some leverage here. Now, with the pick away from the strings, let's start the vibration just to get a feel for it. Don't try to play any notes, just get the feel for it. You really need to tense all the muscles in your arm. Let's take another look. Now, in the next example, what we're going to do is the same exact technique, and we're going to start the hyperpicking vibration before we touch the string. And then once you get the vibration going, bring the pick down into the plane of the strings. At first, you may find that you can only do the hyperpicking technique for an instant. And what you need to do is try to make that instant just a little bit longer each time. Eventually be playing maybe 1 or 2 seconds. And then once you get the hang of that, what you need to do is put some of these little instances together chromatically. I'm sure by now you want something with a little more melodic interest. So what we're going to do is go to our first exercise on the G string, 14th fret, and let's get the following notes together. Now our first exercise is an 11-note pattern. So let's look at the exact pattern to get our fingering together. Now, the hardest thing about hyperpicking is getting the picking technique started. So what we're going to do is we're going to play the first note of the exercise several times before we continue. Let's look at an example. Let's play that same exercise chromatically from the 10th fret. Another good exercise is to play this pattern in groups of 3 or 4. Hyperpicking on the other strings is much the same as we did on the G string. The one major exception is when you start trying to hyperpick on the low E, you realize that something's wrong, that you're missing some kind of support. And what's going on there is that you've been using the next string up as a support. Now you'll notice that when I'm playing the G string, that I'm vibrating the D string, and as I move to the D, I'm vibrating the A, and so forth. But look what happens when I go to the E string. There's no support, and your hand has a tendency to want to flop over. Now what you're going to want to do to circumvent this is to place the low E string in this portion of your palm. Place it directly over the string, and normally you'd have this arm up a little higher when you're hyperpicking. To play on the low E string, you need to shift it down a little and almost make a straight line up the E string. Since we rarely play chromatics the way we've been doing, let's try some diatonic playing, which means to play only the notes in a particular scale. So let's start on the B string for a change. And we're going to start off with the same fingering that we used before, except we're going to play only the notes in the following scale. Let's get the fingering together. Now let's make 3 different exercises out of this fingering. The first exercise, we're going to isolate each mode and play the 11-note pattern like we did before. Now let's try that up to speed. Now, the second exercise that we create out of this fingering is to play all of the modes in one continuous run. Now let's play that up to speed. Now the third exercise is also a continuous run, and the fingering is pretty straightforward. And of course, we want to hyperpick this. Now, of course, we're going to want to do all these exercises on all the different strings. In fact, you should be practicing everything in every position on the neck. Now I know what you're thinking. We've only been doing hyperpicking on one string at a time. And of course when you're playing you're going to want to play from one string to another. So what I found is the easiest location to learn this is down in the lower register, somewhere around the 3rd fret. So let's go down to the 3rd fret on the A string and play the following exercise. And of course, we want to hyperpick it. Now for variety, let's play this exercise in whole steps as opposed to chromatically. Before we try anything fancy with this exercise, let's try a similar pattern on a different pair of strings. We'll start this pattern on the G string on the 8th fret. Now let's play that up to speed chromatically. Now let's go back to the 2-string exercise that we played on the A string and play the same exercise except modally. Of course, you'll eventually want to hyperpick across more than 2 strings. Why not 3, 4, or even all 6? I'm going to leave most of that to you, but I will show you one 3-string example. Well, we're almost home. The final exercise is to combine all three different levels of picking speeds. What we want to do is build from regular picking to speed picking, and then finally up to hyper picking and back down again. Well, I hope I've opened some new possibilities for you on the guitar. Although hyperpicking does take a considerable amount of practice to achieve, it's worth the journey.